You're listening to the Sixers Beat with your host, Derek Bodner, right here on LibertyBallers.com and LibertyBroadcast.co.
All right, welcome everybody. This is Derek. We have not done one of these in a little while, a couple of weeks now, and I have not talked to Max. I feel like it's the first time I have talked to Max in, gosh, it's got to be 2 months or so. So before we even get to basketball, because let's be honest, there's nothing really to talk about with basketball. Hell of a start to a podcast. Please listen to the entire thing. But Max, following you on Twitter and Instagram, you have been fucking everywhere. Where the hell have you been? Just let us live vicariously through you for a couple of minutes while we sit here with no basketball.
This is what the people are here for. They've been waiting for 2 months for this trip recap podcast. So I was in Europe for like 3 weeks, Spain, France, and Italy. That was right after I graduated from my grad program. Kind of a trip I've been planning for a long time. Finally had some time where I didn't have to work and didn't have to be in school, so saved up money to do that. And then got back in early July and basically got right on the road to drive out to Seattle. And we decided to take kind of an indirect route, so we went down south through Tennessee, through Oklahoma and Texas, down to a lot of the national parks. Did the Grand Canyon, Zion and Bryce, Grand Teton and Yellowstone, and then like up through Montana and over to Seattle. So that was like 2.5 weeks of just driving across the country.
Yeah,
now
you were
I'm here
at
in Seattle.
It was funny. Every time I went on Instagram, I'm not a huge Instagram user, but every time I went on, you're in literally a different country. And then you came back and you were at the Grand Canyon about a week after I was. So we just missed each other. Was that the South Rim as well?
I did the North Rim, actually.
Oh, okay. How was that?
It was really cool. I've been to the South Rim before, and it's like in the summer it's super crowded is the thing. And a lot of the national parks we went to were, but the North Rim's a little less popular just because it's harder to you can't get to it from Phoenix. And yeah, it was cool though. It was a little less crowded. It looks really different actually. If you've ever been to the Grand Canyon, like anyone listening, the South Rim is like very rocky and red, and the North Rim is like basically a forest right up to the rim, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I'm sitting here, I'm watching you, and I'm watching Kyle, and he's in Mexico and whatnot. And I'm sitting here.
No, I was in the Caribbean. Thank you very much. And I was in Miami, and I was in DC. I've been on a tour of my own, but I'm chopped liver over here compared to Mr. Country Crosser, Max Rappaport.
Well, I think Max just posts about it more. Actually, I love the Caribbean too. I need to get back down there. The Virgin Islands are incredible.
I was more shameless
exactly
about
where I was
my traveling.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I'm watching you guys, and all I'm sitting here doing is I get to go to Summer League in Vegas, which don't get me wrong, I enjoyed, and I got to do Grand Canyon, and I went to do some hiking and some drone flying and whatnot. But man, it was 116 degrees and brutal. And after about 3 days, I just wanted to get the fuck back east, which really tells you something when you want to get back to the Philadelphia area. I was very jealous. All month I've been jealous of watching you guys travel. So welcome back, but fuck you.
Wow, what a kind open to the podcast. And now Sixers talk.
Yeah. All right, about the Sixers. Part of the reason we opened up talking about traveling is because there's really nothing interesting to talk about with the Sixers. I guess what we have on the agenda, we have the new uniforms, and they've released not the home and away, the blue and the white uniforms. Embiid not being cleared for 5-on-5, although he says there's nothing to worry about with that. Embiid traveling to the NBA games that they're having in Africa. The preseason schedule being released. And what in the hell the Sixers should do with Jahlil Okafor. So I guess let's start off with probably crazy enough, the one that probably garnered the most attention this week, the new uniforms. What's any strong takes or any reaction at all to, really mild change to the uniform?
I feel like I was in the minority in approving of or liking the change, because a lot of people seem to prefer what they view as the more classic feel with the just the all white, or I guess in the case of the white uniforms, the all blue lettering. I like the red with it. I wish the uniforms had more red in them. So 2 thumbs up from me. But the impression that I got from both from like you guys and the general fan base was that they would have just rather them be left alone and just add a Nike swoosh on top of it, I guess. Or maybe I'm misreading this. I don't know. You guys tell me.
Well, I guess for me, like, I would have preferred probably an outline on the number. This is like so stupid. I feel like I would have probably preferred
an NBA podcast, Max. Of course, it's stupid.
5 minutes on traveling, and now we're gonna spend like 15 minutes talking about jersey outlines. I would have preferred probably like when the jerseys first came out 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was. I did think the one thing missing was they kept the like plain block lettering that was on the old jerseys, where it was just plain white or plain, I guess in the case of the blue jersey it was or the white jersey was plain blue. And I just feel like it's kind of missing something. And I thought the 67 throwback they wore last year with the white outline on red lettering, I thought that looked awesome. And I would have really liked to see that, especially if they're dropping the 67 throwback, because that was like a 50th anniversary thing. If they're dropping that, I would have loved to see them change the letters on the blue jersey to red and put a white outline around it, similar to that jersey. The drop shadow, I usually really like drop shadows. I just think this one's a little misplaced. There's just like so much going on the uniform that I feel like it's just kind of distracting. Like I really like the Lakers drop shadow. I really like the Miami Heat when they had a drop shadow. So I like the look of it, and I love the like Sixers gradient Sean Bradley jerseys with the drop shadow on it. I just kind of feel like these already have enough elements where you don't need that. It's almost like just like throwing on something just to throw it on. Whereas I think there were actual things they could have done to the jersey to make it better, which would be just like adding an outline and maybe changing the color of the numbers.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to put it. I think it's slightly distracting, and I don't think it really adds all that much. I kind of view a drop shadow. That's kind of what I throw in there when I'm designing a logo and I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm sitting there in Photoshop and I'm like, let's throw a drop shadow on it. Like, it just feels like it's extra nonsense. Like they got their hands on a Photoshop plugin, they didn't know what to do with it. It's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. It's like I said on Twitter. It's certainly not butchered or anything like that. It's still a really good jersey. I just think that additional touch is a little unnecessary. The other 2 changes, of course, the StubHub patch and the Nike logo. It gave the CEO of the Sixers another chance to really puff his chest out about how he got a company to give him money. So good job for you guys. I don't personally care about the StubHub logo. It doesn't mean anything to me, but it is the way of the future, and it's something we should all get used to, and also something we've known about for a while now.
Yeah, and I mentioned this when I wrote about the jersey BS. It's like I'm used to English Premier League and European soccer style ads where it's the entire front of the jersey basically, and it's the team logo or the team patch is much smaller in comparison. So a little logo like the Sixers have it doesn't bother me. I get why fans who are not used to that sort of thing would sort of reject that, but I mean, whatever. If it helps inject more money into the league and to the team, then whatever. It doesn't bother me at all.
I mean, it will probably annoy us for a game or two, and then it'll just be something that we gloss over and don't even notice, which is probably why you only get about $5 million for that advertisement. But it's a relatively small deal. It's new to us. But
I feel like they did a pretty good job of having it be low key, especially the Sixers, having it be a pretty low key addition to the jersey. Like, obviously it's not as overwhelming as European teams or like soccer clubs, but I feel like they've done a pretty good job for most teams of letting them work it into their color scheme. So it's not like, a Wells Fargo logo or like a PNC, like orange and blue on a Sixers jersey. Like, for the most part, teams have either picked companies that have a logo that fits with their jersey, or in the case of StubHub, I guess has let them change the color of it to match each jersey, which I think like at least makes it a little more tactful than if it was just like an ad slapped right on the jersey.
I almost wish Wells Fargo would have chosen to buy a slot on the jersey so that they could stop calling it the fucking center. Oh. I can't believe
you get so mad about the center. It's hilarious.
It's just so like, have you ever seen a team not recognize naming rights on the arena they play in? It's absurd to me. When they started doing this, how long has it been? It's been 2 or 3 years now that they've refused to mention Wells Fargo. I thought this would be like a press release or two. I didn't picture the CEO's dedication to keeping this going for as long as he has. So I guess in a weird kind of way, I almost admire it, but not at all, really. All right. Yeah, I don't have anything else really. In terms of the StubHub, it's if you make the decision that you're going to sell ad space on your jersey, this was about as well done as I think you could have hoped for. So I don't, like I said, we made our piece about this being a part of the future a while ago when they announced it, and seeing it in an actual NBA jersey, it doesn't look too bad. All right.
Damning with faint praise there.
I mean, how excited can you get about an advertisement on a jersey? It's just, probably the biggest news, or at least news that has the potential to impact the Sixers the most. I believe it was Mark Spears that Embiid told, he is not yet playing 5-on-5 or 1-on-1. I think he also mentioned, which was a weird addition. But that he is, going through drills, and that he expects to be ready for training camp, or at least to play in I forget exactly what the wording is. I should probably look that up. But he expects to be ready in a general sense. The scale of 1 to 10, is this a real worry, or is this something that you brush off?
I would give it a 1. I'm not worried at all. And that's both because I mean, we've seen plenty of Joel Embiid working out at what appears to be full speed this summer, not showing any kind of limitations. And also because the feeling that I get from just asking around about this is that if training camp were to start Monday, he would be full go. Like, there's nobody has given me the impression that this is a thing that's anything more about keeping him on just a steady progress up until when the season starts. So I get that people want him to just be 100% full go at all times, but I do think, given his history, you do have to consider just keeping him in check a little bit up until they really need him to hit his full stride. So I'm not worried about this at all. There could be new developments that happen. You never know. But as of right now, I'm, at least on this part of the health front, I'm not concerned at all.
Yeah, to me, it reminds me a little bit of how they handled him last year, in that it seemed pretty uncertain up until right around training camp, and then he was cleared. And I just feel like you said, Kyle, I feel like this is a situation where it's the dead of the summer. There's nothing happening. He's in Africa for this game he's not going to play in, and they probably would have held him out of even if he was 100% ready to go. So I feel like saying he's not ready for 5-on-5 or that he's not doing that yet, it's kind of the same game they've played for a while of like holding guys out, using that as an excuse, and also conveniently they don't have to talk to reporters, they don't have to do anything. So, and also I just don't know at this point in the summer how much 5-on-5 the guys would be doing anyway. And it does seem like, just from watching like Todd Wright Instagram videos and the stuff Embiid's put out a little bit on like Instagram Live, it seems like he's doing a lot physically. It's not like he's, being held back all that much. So if he's not doing 5-on-5 right now, I don't know if I'm that worried. And also, I feel like it has more to do with time of year and obligations he'd have, like the game in Africa, if they cleared him 100%. So I don't know. I'm not really that concerned about it.
Yeah, I mean, my gut says that when he starts playing 5-on-5, they want it in a very controlled environment with their training staff there to see how he reacts, with the coaches there, with some kind of structure to it. And if he's playing 5-on-5 now, it's probably mostly like a pickup type basketball game where you have no idea who's actually going to be there from the team. And they probably just want to wait to, like I said, to do this when they have more structure, when they have more visibility in how his knee reacts. That being said, if you're a fan who reads this and goes, Jesus fucking Christ, are you kidding me? I kind of understand that because, yes, I would just like, not because I actually necessarily even want him playing 5-on-5 right now. I would just like somebody to come out and reassure me and say, he is physically ready to go and play 5-on-5. And this team will never do that. I get that. I'm not even saying they should do that. But just from a personal standpoint, I wouldn't mind a little bit reassurance on a guy who, really is the most important person in Philadelphia right now, or in Philadelphia sports right now. I understand, especially with everything that this fan base has gone through and injuries that don't recover correctly or are worse than they appear to be, or even going back to last August, centers who were ready to go and able to do everything, and then come October aren't even close to being ready. I understand if you're skeptical. I don't think there's anything really to be worried about outside of the fact that Joel Embiid is 7'2", 270, and has a history of lower body injuries. But in this specific instance, I don't think there's much to be worried about. But I do understand some slight annoyance from the fan base as well.
Yeah, to Max's point, he brought up some Embiid traveling, and he's going to be he's at Basketball Without Borders right now, and so when he's away from the team like that, let's say that they had said to him, "You're good to go for full 5-on-5,"
he'd be playing every game he could.
Right, and I don't know that that's a good idea for him. Like, he would almost be his own worst enemy, and it's obviously a good thing that you have a guy that his first instinct is, I want to play, I want to play, I want to play. But at the same time, because of his health history, as we've mentioned, you do have to pull back on the reins a little bit and say, look, how can we go about this in a way that keeps him on a steady path towards the regular season, towards training camp, preseason, whatever the objective is here, and make him work towards that goal of he's going to be ready to go when we tell him he can play 5-on-5, but also acknowledge that if we were to let him just play 5-on-5 whenever, that he might put himself in a situation where he's playing too much in short windows and in situations that maybe he shouldn't be doing. Like, you have to be able to get in his ear a little bit there. So I think this is it seems to me, looking from afar, like sort of a compromise where he's working out a lot with the team, but they're keeping that carrot in front of him and making sure that they have him ready to go when training camp starts in about a month and a half.
Sorry, I'm dying. No, I agree with.
I was like, wow, I made you that sick over there.
No, I agree with your guys' take. It's like I said, I wouldn't mind being reassured, but I understand why you wouldn't clear him right now. So, all right, the preseason schedule came out this past week. It's been, one of the things they're doing to try to extend the season a little bit. Extend the number of days it takes to finish the season, not extend, obviously add more than 82 games. But one of the things they're trying to do is they cut the preseason down. Last year, the Sixers played 7 games over almost 3 weeks, about 2.5 weeks of time. This year, they have 5 games in 1 week, I think 8 days. So much more condensed schedule, much shorter schedule, and gets the season started, probably a good 10 days earlier than it otherwise would have been. The only real thing I guess I could think of here is whether or not that impacts Embiid's availability or even Simmons' availability, depending on how cautious they are with him as well. I think we should get the regular season schedule here soon. I think that's coming out shortly. It'll be interesting to see how many back-to-backs the Sixers have in that, because hopefully the trade-off is Embiid will be able to, knock on wood, assuming he's healthy, play more because they don't have to rest him as much for back-to-backs. And after talking about it for so long, it'll be great to see how much reduction there actually is. But, we have at least that to look forward to. You have Sixers basketball coming up in, just a little over 60 days' time. So it's getting there.
Yeah, I think just looking at the preseason schedule and condensing it down to 5 games, I probably see teams treating it more like the NFL treats preseason, where maybe for that first game, second game, third game, you have Embiid, Simmons, Fultz. I mean, they're not going to play major minutes, like even in past preseason, you limit guys' minutes, but at least playing. And then probably those last couple are like to figure out final roster spots or two-way contracts or guys for your D-League team. Like that's how what I think makes more sense. And maybe you spread it out a little bit so that, they're not playing as many games in a row, but maybe you play that game on the 4th, the 6th, and then you let them play the game on the 11th. And the other two, you just basically play your backups and potential D-League stashes and stuff.
Yeah, I'm not really sure I have a lot to say about preseason other than I hope everybody stays in one piece.
Well, I had to, the first two games are at the center. So I think the Sixers, I think Max's theory about all of the high profile guys playing then is probably fair. The last game though on Friday the 13th is in Kansas City, relatively near where Joel Embiid went to college. So you wonder whether or not, first of all, I had a lot of people tell me that they don't want him playing on February 13th or on Friday the 13th. I agree. I'm not a superstitious guy at all, but with this guy, just in case I'm wrong about the superstition thing, you probably want to be safe. But he will play that game because of, I think a lot of people are going to be going there to see him play. But
for sure.
That is about the extent of my preseason take.
I hadn't even realized that was on Friday the 13th, and I'm with you that I try to avoid superstition, but it's an intersection where I'm not necessarily comfortable saying, yeah, I don't believe in it at all. Screw it. Who cares? Let's take our precautions.
My own personal life, I'll throw superstition to the wind, but Joel Embiid's foot, yeah, I'm a little concerned.
Please be careful with him, Kansas City.
Yes, please. All right, next up, we're going to dive into Jahlil Okafor's future with the Sixers. But before we do, a quick word from our sponsors, Harry's. Jeff and Andy started Harry's Razors because they were fed up buying the overpriced razors you'd find in department stores. So they bought their own German factory with over 100 years of precision blade making experience to ensure the highest quality and began selling directly to you, the customers, to cut down on distribution costs. The end result has been a terrific shaving experience that doesn't break the bank, coming in at half the price of competing brands. I've been a faithful Harry's customer for months, and yes, I buy my own blades with my own money, something I do because of how impressed I am with the quality of their product. You can get started today by claiming your free trial set, a $13 value you get for free when you sign up. All you have to do is cover the shipping cost. The free trial set includes a weighted, ergonomic razor handle, 5 precision-engineered blades with a lubricating strip and trimmer blade, rich lathering shave gel, and a travel blade cover. To get your free trial set, go to harrys.com/SixersBeat right now. That's HARRYS.com/SixersBeat. Okay, returning to the discussion about Okafor and his future with the club. I really began thinking about this the other week when I wrote an article about what it would take for the Sixers to get to the point where they could have $35 million in cap space next summer, or enough to offer a 35% max contract, I should say. And you start having to make decisions. And one of the decisions is what to do with JJ Redick, who, because of the 1-year inflated salary he signed, would have an enormous cap hold, which you would have to renounce to really have substantial cap space. But because of the timing of that, you wouldn't have to make that decision until you already have a use for that next summer. You have smaller decisions to make, like what to do on options for Nick Stauskas and Justin Anderson. Whatever you do with Robert Covington and his potential extension would impact that. Joel Embiid will have an $18 million cap hold next summer if he's not extended this fall. So an Embiid extension could increase or decrease your cap space depending on what you do with that, although I can't imagine Embiid would agree to an extension starting below $18 million, so you'd probably have a higher number than that if you do extend him. But one of the more interesting discussions is Jahlil Okafor. That this would be, what we're talking about is the 4th year of his rookie scale contract, 2018-19, where that's a pretty sizable jump. A little less of a jump for a top draft pick than it is for guys farther down, but a big jump nonetheless. And, I think his contract for 2018-19 would be, hold on, I lost the number.
Well, I have it in front of me. His option number is $6.3 million for next year.
Okay.
If they pick up his final year option.
Yeah. So that is, if your stated goal, thank you for that, Max. I had a sheet up in front of me, but I already had that contract zeroed out, which is what we're going to get to. But if your goal is to get the $36 million because of Embiid's jump, because of a potential, I think when I did the math, I slotted Covington in at $12 million next year because of a Covington extension, because of a couple of these things, and because of a draft pick next year, which is going to cost you a couple million. I think I slotted in about $2.5 million for that. I think I was figuring right around a borderline playoff team. But because of all these things, in order to get the 35, 36, 37 million in cap space, that $6 million is going to be important. And because of the timing, you have to make that decision before this season starts. It's the first decision of these group of decisions you're going to have to make. Is there a chance the Sixers don't pick up the fourth-year option on Jahlil Okafor's contract?
I think there is a fairly strong chance that happens because they are trying to move him right now. I don't think it's a secret that they've been trying to move.
Breaking news.
Yeah, exactly. Both like the last year, and part of this is because they're always going to be connected. Last year, it became a thing of, are they going to trade Jahlil Okafor or Nerlens Noel? And really, it was never about one or the other. It was both those guys were not really fits. Once Joel Embiid was healthy, that was it. Like they just they weren't in the plans anymore. And it was a matter of being able to get a good return for either one. There were obviously the free agency implications with Nerlens Noel last season. So they almost had to move on from him at some point. But they've shown no sign, nor have I heard from anybody, that Jahlil Okafor is going to be in their long-term plans. And so if they can't find a partner for a trade within the next couple months here before they need to pick up his option, not only can I not see them doing that, I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility that they would cut him outright. Now, I'm sure that they would try to avoid that situation at any cost because that's just, it's not something that they want to, it's not a talking point that they want to deal with going into the year. I mean, regardless of what you think of Okafor, that's a lot of people will, how do you cut a former number 3 overall pick? Blah, blah. You guys know how
it's only 19.
Yeah, all that same stuff. But at that point, if you've decided that you're not going to pick up his option, and he's going to be the third big man on the team next year, Richaun Holmes will be the primary backup to Joel Embiid. If he's the third big man, you don't want to pick up the option on him for the cap hold that we discussed for the salary number when it is a pretty obvious goal of theirs to be able to clear max space for next summer. And at that point, if you don't pick up his option, you don't have it. He has zero trade value. If you think his trade value is low now, he won't have any if you make that decision, because teams will say they'll dare you to cut him or to let him go to free agency next year. So I think not only is it a strong possibility they don't pick up his option if he's still here, I think he might not be on the team even if through the end of preseason, let's put it that way, in one way, shape, or form.
Well, I'll play devil's advocate for a second. I guess the only reason I think picking up his option makes some sense is, so it's 6.3 next year, it's $5 million this year, and you've already agreed to the $5 million this year. I kind of feel like if he shows any amount of improvement, or even goes back to what he was as a rookie, I feel like if you accept the option for next year, come trade deadline time or next off season, there's going to be some team that is willing to just take him for free. Like, I feel like he'd have to really drop off for there not to be a Brooklyn Nets or a team that just doesn't have a lot of picks or has a lot, like basically what the Sixers were 2 years ago. Like, if a team had come to you and said, look, we'll give you Ben McLemore for nothing, even though he sucks and whatever, like, just take his money for 1 year. I feel like there's going to be a team in that position and you'll get nothing for him. You probably won't have to give up anything to get rid of the money, but I kind of feel like because of his age, He's going to be 22 at that point. And because he was a number 3 overall pick, there's going to be someone who's willing to at least just take a shot on him, who's not going to be able to use their $6.3 million on anything better than that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people, I see a lot of, it's amazing how much this is still debated. You go to Liberty Ballers comment section and it is,
God, yeah,
there are still OKAFOR'S over there. It amazes me, but
they're brave. Let's put it that way.
They are. Where was I going with that? Sorry, this is an August podcast for me too. I'm not all there. But a lot of people talk about, give him a chance. He clearly wasn't healthy last year. Let him get in the best possible shape possible. Let him work with Simmons and Fultz and all this extra talent. And on some level, I can kind of understand that. On the other level, like Kyle, I want Richaun Holmes getting minutes over him. But not only that, I want Ben Simmons getting minutes at the 5 over him. If for no other reason, then I want to evaluate whether Ben Simmons at the 5 is actually a thing and could be a thing in the NBA. So when you look at that and you say, okay, Embiid's going to get minutes, Holmes is going to get minutes, you're going to want to experiment with Simmons at the 5. How much time is there actually left for Jahlil Okafor to play and showcase himself? And is it going to be enough where he's going to recoup some trade value? And I just don't see where there's a way that Okafor could get enough time and me not feel like that time could be used elsewhere. And it doesn't mean he's going to get no minutes, but in order to get enough where he's going to really improve his trade value, I'm not sure that's going to be something that I would want to see play out. So I just don't see an upside. I certainly don't see an upside enough to risk, Max's, you can find a taker for him. I feel like we've been talking about finding a taker for Okafor for so long now that I don't want to assume that's going to be something that will that we can count on. And if that does come to pass where you pick up his option and it's a little harder to find a taker than we expect because his minutes are so low, I don't want to be in a spot now where he could be the difference between you and maximum cap space. And maybe now you have to give up a draft pick just to move him. That's the position I want to avoid the least. I don't really, I always go back to what am I scared? What scares me the most? And what scares me more is Okafor. I almost said Embiid. Of course, you're going to want Embiid's money on the books. But what scares me the most is Okafor costing you either a draft pick to clear the cap space or the chance to go out there next year and sign a max contract guy. What doesn't scare me all that much is whatever small return we might be able to get back for him. I do agree with Kyle. I don't see the team necessarily wanting to jump right into releasing Jahlil Okafor because of the perception of that. And look, you release a former number 3 overall pick 2 years into his career. That's going to look very bad. It's a little easier for a guy like Colangelo to do that because it wasn't his pick and he has a real easy way to explain that away. But it's, that's going to be one of the real, last year we went into training camp with the whole Nerlens Noel, Jahlil Okafor subplot to camp. And that grew once Noel, commented to the media. This is going to be one of the real subplots to me as well.
Yeah, it's been a running joke on Sixers Twitter, spearheaded by our good pal Brandon Lee Gouton at Bleeding Green Nation, to cut Jahlil Okafor for at least the last year or so. I mean, he's been sort of jokingly suggesting that long before it was ever a real possibility. And I still think that they're going to work very hard to just save some face here. But I agree with you, Derek, that I think the bigger risk here in discussing Max's point about someone taking a chance on him, I think the bigger risk is being stuck in a position where you want to go make an offer to LeBron or some kind of big free agent, and you have to make other moves with somebody like Okafor that has a guaranteed deal rather than just moving small pieces of salary or just not keeping guys around that have smaller deals. So I think that's a much bigger risk to the Sixers, and I think they certainly, with the moves that they've made this offseason and the trajectory they expect to be on, that is definitely what they're looking at next summer, is they want to go after big fish, and rightfully so. I mean, they have one of the most exciting young cores in basketball. So I don't think, as you said, Derek, they're going to let some minuscule chance at Okafor improving his trade value impact that strategy moving forward. I don't think they want to have any money on their books going into the next couple off seasons that they don't need to.
It's amazing. This is a guy, like we said, 21, former number 3 pick. His contract for 2018-19, which is what we're talking about, would represent 6% of the salary cap. And we're sitting here going, man, 6% of the salary cap on a 1-year deal. I don't know if you can find a taker for that. That's crazy. And it's crazy because it's not really a crazy concern, I don't think. Like, salary cap space has dried up. The oversaturation of centers is a really big part of this. And I think of a team, there's just, when you're talking about, a reclamation project, which is what Okafor would be, you have to have the playing time to give him, to allow him to prove himself. And with so many teams only playing one big man at a time, and the glut of big men that creates, it's just, what teams are going to look at him and say, you know what, we can turn him into what he should have been. It's harder to do now than it would have been 10 years ago, and that's a shame. But that is where we are at.
I can't believe a year ago I wrote a, hey, maybe give Jahlil Okafor a chance piece. But like, I feel like I'm like so easily able to convince myself, not that he's gonna be good or gonna be a part of the team's future, but that there's like a better chance of that happening than of him being so bad that he has zero trade value. Because I feel like right now the trade hasn't happened, but if you were to go to a team like the Nets or, pick a team that has some cap space and say, hey, we'll just give him to you for free, I have a hard time imagining there's not a team out there who'd be like, yeah, we'll cut our 15th guy and take a shot on Jahlil Okafor. So I guess I feel like, let's say it's a 5% chance that Jahlil Okafor like turns it around, he gets healthy, turns around the season and is like a real NBA player who's part of your future, not a star, but just good. Is that 5 or 6 or whatever percent higher than the percent chance that he's so awful that you can't even give him away on a 1-year deal?
Yeah, but I mean that 5% might be higher, but what's the gain? Like, is the gain enough that I even really care about it? I guess is kind of my perspective of it. And going back to your point that a year ago you were talking about, writing about giving Okafor a chance. Well, 2 years ago we all had him in our top 5. So, oops. How quickly things change. Yeah, boy does it. Him and Porzingis neck and neck.
It's torn. I think I had Okafor right above.
I can't. The risk is not worth it to me, because like, even if you find a team that says, hey, we want to take a chance on him, I think a lot of those teams are dealing with salary cap problems of their own, or not even necessarily problems, but they're all conscious of what things represent, and they'll say, okay, we'll send you somebody back that's on a longer term deal or something. There are too many factors to consider there that it just doesn't seem worth it to me, because like, let's say things go all the way wrong with Joel Embiid this season. I think we've pretty much proven that Jahlil Okafor, and this goes for Nerlens as well too, is not an insurance policy for Joel Embiid. And if Joel Embiid goes down, the team is going to be retooling around a future that's built solely around Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons. And in that case, you want to have as much flexibility as possible, and you don't want to have any contracts on the books or any players on the books that are going to present you any sort of hurdles toward that goal. And that might mean they would be even more aggressive going after guys in free agency next year if they had to deal with those sort of questions. So that's just another unknown that you stack on top of all of this. And I just can't see them making their lives even marginally more difficult to chase turning Jahlil Okafor's trade value from whatever second round picks they can get for him into a bottom of the barrel first round pick at best. That's not, there's just no realistic path for me to turn him into an actual trade chip versus just, oh, okay, we'll dump him somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure you have to cut him. Like, maybe they will, who knows? I don't know. But I'm not saying if you don't pick up his option, cut him.
No, yeah, no,
because
I agree with that.
There's not like a guy on that you're dying to sign right now. But I do agree with Kyle's overall point that if you don't pick up his option, his trade value is gone. There's no chance of recouping that. If you don't pick up his option, obviously he'd then be an expiring contract, and he would be unrestricted because while typically if players have 3 years or less experience in the NBA, they become restricted free agents. That the only way that's not the case is if they're coming off of the third year of their rookie scale contract, and their fourth year option was declined, which is where Okafor would fit in. So he would be unrestricted. He would be a rental player. I'm with Kyle. There's not enough upside for me to whatever small risk there would be of not being able to move Okafor. There's not enough upside for me. That cap hit that he would have, that contract he would have, that option year for 2018-19 is substantial enough for what the Sixers want to do as a team and in their finances that I think there's a real chance that that they could be making that decision not to pick that up, which I mean, like we said, is incredible. But I don't know if I have anything else on that topic. That's a pretty
we went pretty hard on that, and that's a lot for August.
Anything else you guys have been thinking of in the last couple of weeks that is worth bringing up?
Not particularly.
Yeah, not really.
It's not like we have lots of mailbag questions this time of year. At least any that we haven't answered 15 different times.
I guess next podcast we'll do a mailbag podcast. I'll solicit, unless there's some big breaking news that happens in the middle of August. Which
let's hope there's not. Honestly,
yeah.
Like that would be for the best for all parties. I think.
Breaking news in August for the Sixers usually is literally breaking news, which we don't want.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll send at SixersBeat the Twitter some mailbag questions for next week. We'll try to get a couple of questions on that will give us some fresh topics to talk about. But thank you guys for jumping on. Max, best of luck in trying to get settled in Seattle, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, see you guys.
You've been listening to the Sixers Beat right here on LibertyBallers.com and LibertyBroadcast.co.